Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, 2nd of June. Yesterday was a total garbage. So I'll see what we got today. Man. Okay. E-mini yesterday up pretty solidly in the pre-market, and then all that given away during the day's trading. They tried to mount a recovery at points, but they just couldn't do it, and we are once again appear to be stuck around 4,200. Now, there is some signs that the gamma flips on the downside of that, but I don't think that this move, I don't know. So here's the thing, is there was definitely appears to have been some disappointment from the numbers yesterday, the manufacturing numbers, right? So I did not see it as like a really bad, but the market seems to have reacted to it, worrying about stagflation, right? But then it's like a short-term move, so I kind of think, it's okay. Maybe they try and mount another push today. 10-year yields retreated a little bit, but the 10-year is just getting super, super tight. I mean, like over here, it was all over the place. And when you look at it in retrospect, like at the time, I was like, man, this is moving really far. But now all of a sudden, it's like, oh, it is stuck. It is just chopping. It is just trying to destroy your position. So we've got to be very careful about how we place our orders over there. Oil, well, they were doing pretty good yesterday, and then they got hit by the PMIs too. But they're doing okay. There was an oil tanker, not an oil tanker, a ship, an Iranian ship had an explosion and sunk. No idea as to what caused it, but I think everybody is thinking the same thing, right? It was probably Israeli intelligence. So good for them, I say. But anyways, silver and gold taking a little bit of a hit yesterday after those PMIs too. But mounting a pretty good recovery there in gold and silver. Yeah, well, I don't know. It was looking so good in silver yesterday, right? Copper still kind of a little sad. China's really clamping down on it. It really is like, wow, China can really affect things. Okay, so do we get some news coming here? Oh, just Canadian numbers. That's okay. We are getting a little bit of a trend starting up here in the E-mini, all right? I'm not quite sure what's going on, but we are getting a little bit of something. Yep, YouTube Finance says Mossad. Yeah, probably was Mossad. Real quick here, the dollar flipping around here. And it appears that as they flipped, let me confirm here, yeah, as the dollar started to turn down, that is when the E-mini started to go up, and the treasuries are bullish as well. Interesting. Well, yeah. So this whole thing is interesting over in Israel because it does appear that Netanyahu will be leaving. That the opposition has finally gotten something together, and my understanding is that the opposition in Israel really hates him. So, I don't know what their take is on these sorts of things like Iran or, the West Bank and Gaza and all these things. So, but I don't think that Israeli intelligence or the military is, going to change under a new, like Mossad in particular. I think that it's like if the new president doesn't understand the security risks, Mossad will make sure that he understands them, The incoming government is harder on Islamic opposition, YouTube Finance says. Really? You think they'll be harder on Iran? Well, here's the thing is that, they're just like blowing things up and, they're doing what they want. I don't get it. I really don't get what the United States is doing here. Joe Biden, because they're negotiating with Iran. You're literally negotiating with a terrorist state, essentially. And meanwhile, your strongest ally is like, dude, this is not okay. We can't allow this to happen. And they're literally like blowing things up and everything. Like they're so concerned about it. And you're just like, yeah, it's okay. It's fine. You believe that? So that's what's going on there. I do think that this is going to be an important dynamic to sort out going forward, especially for oil, right? I mean, it really matters to oil if that Iranian supply comes online. And it just kind of goes back to this. I keep seeing this theme hit over and over and over again, and it must be a pretty widespread belief amongst foreign policy experts. But basically saying, countries like China and Iran, they have a different culture, and you cannot think about them in the same way that you think about Western cultures, because in our minds, we thought that if we gave Chinese more economic freedom and helped them out and everything, that they would move towards more freedom. And what we have learned is they used that freedom to make money and then clamp down even harder on the populace. And the Chinese believe that the stronger their economy becomes, the harder that they have to be on it, and the more control that they have to exert. So it's the exact opposite of what we wanted to happen. And so now we've got this strong China, ascendant China, soon to become largest economy in the world, doing whatever it wants. And yesterday, yesterday the Global Times guy was out saying, you know what, China should get more nuclear weapons in case this, we have more trade war issues. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're gonna throw around your weight around nuclear weapons in case of a trade war? Like, how stupid were we to have ever allowed China to get in this position? It was the dumbest thing we ever did. If China is gonna start using nuclear weapons like that, then the economic opportunity zones in China was the dumbest mistake that we ever made. You know what I mean? Hopefully, Xu Xishin is just just going off. I think that that guy in particular, the Global Times editor, he's not. You used to think, this guy, he's just a mouthpiece. He's just a propaganda outlet, but I think that guy really believes the hype too. You know what I mean? And so sometimes he will say some extreme things that are just that maybe even the leadership in China are like, no, that's silly. We're not going to use nuclear weapons in a trade war dispute, right? Okay. But so that you look at that situation with China, and then you turn around and you look at Iran, and it's like, okay, so if we give more economic opportunity to Iran and we be nice to them, they'll change their behavior? No. They didn't do it when we had the nuclear agreement with the agreement in place, and it's not going to be like that if we put it back in place. And what's going to happen is that agreement is going to sunset, and then they're just going to go make nuclear weapons, and they're not going to change their behavior. Short-sighted gains because people got to blink. I don't know, man. So It matters. It matters though to the markets because it's going to affect the oil supply, and I think it could affect the dollar too. By the way, we had a pretty good dive in the dollar there. Blow my nose. Now, I need to turn on Texas speech. By the way, that was funny. The first three of you guys were all from Florida. Well, Bill from Southwest Florida, Ether Eater from Tampa, Uzi from Central Florida. We just got to go to Florida and have a get together. Is I guess what we got to do. Now, here on the market side, I did take that one trade and they came down through me. What I'm seeing in the treasuries is that summer chop that I hate. And me thinking that my scalps would maybe work okay in that action, it appears not. But maybe we can work it out. Maybe as we go along, we'll figure it out, huh? Owen says that she's from Florida, but she doesn't live there now. Yeah, because she lives in Tennessee or whatever, right? I will tell them to be prepared for all of us. Interesting. So yeah, I'm a little worried about what I might get here in the treasury, but I'm looking at the E-mini and it looks okay. I should probably stop saying this. I've noticed the more that I say about the market out loud, like the worse I do. You notice that? It makes me think they're out to get me again. Oh my gosh. So yeah, so we should go and look at this. So there's this guy in Futures IO. He was frankly crazy. He says crazy things, and he has, I don't know, man. It's weird, the shit he says. And he doesn't know how to write. Like, he doesn't capitalize his sentences. He's got all these, it's like he's 12 or something like that. But then he will post things that are way beyond what I would expect a regular retail trader to post, right? So he was talking about like the order routing at the CME and the different gateways and stuff. I felt like his understanding of it was a little incorrect, because he was saying, well, if you use the convenience gateway, then you're getting throttled. And it's like, well, yes, you don't go into the queue until you're at the actual product gateways, or what do they call it? The global, it's like GWGC. Anyways, you don't get in the queue until you're in that one, but like the amount of time that you spend in the convenience gateway is like trivial. So yeah, if both of you submitted an order at the same time, it might be random which one gets first in the queue. But to your retail trading strategy, it doesn't matter. But then he was saying, as soon as you get filled, they know who they were trading against and what to do about it. And that is wrong. So I spent all this time yesterday digging through the fixed libraries at the CME and their order system to see, finding the execution report message to verify that there wasn't any identifying information in there. And there's not. So I'm like, okay, so where did you get this from? But it doesn't look like he's responded. Until the IMAX every connection, we're all getting front run. I don't think that they can front run you. So here, let me show you. Here it is. So this is kind of stuff that like really isn't pertinent to you. Okay. So at the CME Globex, there's different ways of connecting to the CME, by the way, right? There's like direct and Clearport and stuff like that. But we are all using the Globex. And you can verify that by going like, here rhythmic. So CME Group says, okay, here's our provider. What do they do? And it straight up says, okay, they use iLink. CME Group functionality supported. So they go through the gateways. So they're using Globex, right? iLink architecture. And then it talks about it here. Customers can access and trade on the standard iLink gateway referred to as the iLink Convenience Gateway. The Convenience Gateway allows the client system to connect to any Convenience Gateway session which manages routing for all order messages. The Convenience Gateway first in, first out message handling is enforced once the message reaches the MSGW, which is the market segment gateway. Okay, so the Convenience Gateway first in, first out message handling is enforced once the message reaches the market segment gateway. Following diagram shows the Convenience Gateway model in which a sample session AB1 exists on a single gateway. Okay, so basically, your order goes into the Convenience Gateway, and then from there they say, oh, okay, this needs to be routed to the market segment for the E-mini or whatever it is, right? And then once you're there, then you have a position in the queue. So if both of us inputted our orders and they got, buffered, at the Convenience Gateway, then which one of us is first in line at the market segment gateway could be random. But I don't know how often that's forwarded, but it's going to be pretty fast, right? It's going to be fast enough that we're not going to notice. And then they don't tell anybody. I mean, it's not like it goes to the Convenience Gateway. They send the data to everybody else so that they can front run your order and get in at the market segment gateway first. And then they you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. And honestly, I would think that the reason that they do it this way is that most small outfits, like Rhythmic and CQG, they aren't going to build an internal order routing architecture to directly route you to the correct market segment. They're just going to take everything in and send it to the Convenience Gateway. So that's why they do it that way. Because at Goldman, everything was all about routing it to the right spot, which was hard. Like, to be able to do that quickly, it's very difficult. So I think that's why that functionality exists. I'm guessing. But anyways, I went through the fix library. I was like, I haven't looked at a fix library for a long time. I was looking through all the messages, figuring out what they were doing. It doesn't send that information out. So I want to know why this person thinks that, because he's convinced that it's like, they see your order as soon as it gets in and they know you're a retail trader and try and stop it out first. I'm like, I don't think so. I don't know where you've got that idea that it works that way, but it doesn't work that way. The whole thing is, the thing that I think is truly nasty about it is that they don't need to do that. Because you're you're just going to be, you don't know what the true value of it is. None of us can predict the future. Just the normal oscillations of the markets are going to stop you out, and their market making algorithm can just take the best spots in line. People need to work on strategy rather than looking for reasons why the market is out to get them. Well, here's what I think where I think the issue is, Stephen, is there is something important to understand about the market, and they take the wrong lesson from it. Okay, so I will try and teach it here once again. I guess I do it every day, but for a given market inefficiency, there is an optimal number of contracts to trade that optimal that inefficiency. If I know that price should go up to 132,000, I can calculate based on the average volatility of price and the average volatility of a volume and how far away we are from that price, the optimal number of contracts for us to get to 132 in order to maximize my profit. And if more contracts than that try and trade on that inefficiency, then it will create an inefficiency the other direction, right? And in effect, anybody else that tries to get on it after that is going to lose money, essentially, right? So what you should really be taking out of that is, if I see an algorithm and it does something, and I think, oh, that must mean that we're going up to 132. Well, if the algorithm already has taken the optimal number of contracts, then I don't have a trade. I'm jumping on and I'm just going to make it inefficient, right? The only way I have a trade is if I'm like in before him, if I'm in early. So you can't really follow other people. You can't wait for some big meta order to finish and then say, oh, we're going to go to 132. They know something, we're going to go to 132. It doesn't work. It won't work because they've already traded the optimal number of contracts, right? And everybody reads that and they say, so what it really means is the market is out to get me. No, that's not it at all. It's that you are trading against somebody that is informed and they already took the trade. So there's no opportunity left for you. Hence, it's not really an effective strategy in the long run to just follow other people or follow what you see in the tape, because in an efficient market, that stops working. And probably back in the day, you could get away with that sort of thing because they didn't know the optimal number of contracts. But these days, these algorithms, they know, unless it's a big move. And that's why we've got to be thinking, oh, I really shouldn't be taking a trade unless I know it's a big move, right? By the way, kind of missed my opportunity here in the E-mini. Should have been taking it 4205. Like you said, stops get hit naturally. Well, the thing is that like these market making algorithms, basically they're just taking into account the volatility of the volume, right? To try and detect that somebody, if the algorithm says, oh, somebody seems to be buying more contracts than is in line with my models, that must be informed trading. So I need to pull my offers and not let those get filled, right? That's what it does. And then the rest of it is just random. The rest of it is just, I'm going to place orders here around this, and in normal market chop, I will make the spread. Like it averages out to, you make the spread. It's not natural if you're trading a duration that can be pushed around. If they can know the optimum number of contracts, they also know the optimum to take out the most bulk orders. Well, I would be careful about that one. So this kind of goes back to your market impact. So if I know that a bunch of day traders have gone short at 28, and I know that they're going to puke if I trade 28.5, or let's say 27. They're long 27 and they're going to puke if it's 28.5. Ergo, I should sell down to 27 to stop them out and then try and get out at 26.5. Like, that's what retail traders think, right? But here again, you got to consider the square root law of market impact and the sign change and things like that. So if you short it to get down to 26.5, then what will happen is those, when you start buying here, they're going to see that and start pushing the other way. And so the amount of money that you spend pushing it down from 27.5 to 26, those 2 ticks, the amount of money that you spend pushing it down those 2 ticks, and then you trying to get out, you net lose money. Like, it's not a very effective tactic unless you are somehow able to do it with so few contracts that the number of stops that you get down at 26.5 is equal to how many it took to move it there, right? Like, here, let's just assume that you had to take all of these, right? So if I was going to push it down to 26.5, I would have to trade 8,000 contracts, right? I'd have to trade 8,000 contracts, and then to make money on the trade, I would really have to have 8,000 contracts hit into me at 26.5 in order to make, 4,000 plus 8,000 in order to make $12,000, right? But if I don't do that, then all of a sudden, it comes back to 26.5 as I'm trying to get filled, right? No, let's say I do that. 1,000, 2,000 hit at 26.5. Okay. And then I try and get filled here. I'm doing it on limit, or maybe I even aggressively hit back up, right? If I aggressively hit back up, then I'm just washed out all my profits. It's just, let's write that down. Make sure I'm got all my math right. Right. So you trade 4K and 4K right here. Okay. And then you minus 2K here. So you still got 6K behind you, right? And if you were to hit back with market orders, it would maybe come back on 1 or 2K. So you get minus 2K here, minus 2K here. And then you've got 2K left. So now you do minus 2K left here, right? So in net, you've actually lost 1 tick. Make sense? That's what would tend to happen. So you can only do this. You can only do this if you know that there's an inefficiency. Like, if you know that we should be moving down here anyways, then it's push it down here, and the retail stops are going to come, and I know the optimal number of contracts to trade it, and then I just take my profit off, down in here. I should, if there's a real market inefficiency, then I should be able to just take off 8K here, right? You get what I mean? So this idea that you can just shove them around willy-nilly, it's not a good trade, right? What is a good trade is it should be moving down there anyways. But I think that what is probably more likely the case is something like this, is 4,000 guys, 4K guys get in here, 2K guys get in here, and nothing's happening. They want it to bust the highs. They're expecting it to bust the highs. And these are all just retail traders, or it's just random, right? And then nothing happens, so they give up. But when they give up, it comes down. Only 1K are able to scratch. So now there's still 5K left to puke here. So then 3K go through here, because that's would be standard. Okay. So now you've still got, another K or another 2K down in here. Right. So now you've got another 2K to go into here. And so then on the chart, what do you get? You get this and you get this. And you're like, they just shook us out. Well, it wasn't that they just shook us out. It was that we all took a trade when there was no reason to take a trade. That's what's happening to me. This is what's happening to me. Is I'm taking a trade because I think I see an inefficiency, and it's not. The market just goes dead. And so it seems like it's going my way a little bit, and then it flips back down the other side because too many people tried to take it. Gus asks, does the same apply to stocks? The same definitely applies to stocks. And in fact, I would argue that the effect is even stronger because the book is not as thick. I'm almost choking. Oh my gosh, guys. I haven't breathed in water on stream in a long time. They see a participant that is not in their cabal as an inefficiency / opportunity. No, like I don't think you get what I'm saying. What they see as an inefficiency is when I go and calculate the value of the bond based on all of these certain factors about things that are going on out there, it says that it should be priced at 131.27.5. And it ticked down to 26.5. There's no news. There's no reason for it to move. The cash market didn't move. It should come back to 27.5. That's what they view as an inefficiency. Information that we either are not getting or that, we're not calculating effectively enough. That's the sort of thing that I think they look at as an inefficiency. Like I would think when I say inefficiency, I would think more of it in like arbitrage terms. That kind of perspective is why I watch the stream. Thanks. Well, understand that my understanding is constantly evolving too, right? Because I definitely, my views have definitely changed as I've learned more things. And, I didn't just make that change willy-nilly. I made that change because I saw a considerable amount of empirical evidence that supported it. These are the sorts of things that you learn when you get into the market microstructure and market modeling. You realize that the strongest players in the market don't try and make predictions. They just try and arbitrage. It's true that preferred clients get access to a more detailed order book. No. So I don't know. I've heard these things that like, they can see where your stops are. I don't believe that is true. I've never seen any evidence to suggest that that's true. I'm not quite sure what it is that you would be looking at on the DOM that we can't already see beyond market, market by order data, where you can see not just the number of orders that are here, but you can see the size of every order that's on the limit. Instead of it just saying 4377, it breaks it up and it says there's a 12 lot and an 8 lot and 100 lot and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then when this increases or decreases, it says this is the order that added or removed, so that you can know like exactly where you are in the queue. I would think stops are client-side and platform-based. I mean, basically an internal line of code to execute a market order if it gets sold. Well, there are different types, right? Because I can have a synthetic stop on my side I can have a stop on the broker, and I can have a stop on the exchange. There is a stop order type on the exchange. Actually, let's go back and show that. Let's see if I can find it. We should use iLink 3. Message specification. New order single right here. And then somewhere in here, there is the order type. Order type. Market order, limit order, stop order with protection, stop limit order, market limit order. These are the types of orders that you can place on the CME. They can't see stop, so why would they push the entire market to take your one? That's exactly what I'm saying, Steven. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's not worth it. They're just saying, yeah, so they get to see stop orders. That's where I'm saying I don't see anywhere where they can. Obviously, there are stop orders on the exchange, but I think that only the exchange can see that. I don't think that information gets published. So that's where we get into like CME market data, I think. Book management. See, you can get it market by order. They can add a limit order, modify an order, or cancel an resting order, and that's it. New create update, book priority. This is just explaining how the MBO stuff works. That's not what we want. Simple binary encoding, maybe. Message schema. Yep. There's nothing in there about, oh, we'll send you a book update that says that, you know, it's a little bit of a move up there now. Yeah, try and give myself a little bit more room here. Actually, no, I don't want to. I don't want to get myself into doubles, 2 orders again. I always start doing dumb things when I start doing that too early. Part of the logic for reasonable stops is that your stop is far enough out that many people's stops don't aggregate around that area to make it profitable to move the market there. Yeah, but that's what I was saying is like, I think that we can quantify when it would be worth it, right? Because we can come in and we can say, if the stops are at 30, how many stops are there? And how many contracts would it require for me to push it up there? If we just go with what's on the book, and we have to take out 6,000 orders in order to take out 30, then there better be 6,000 stops going to 30 half, 31, 31 half. And if there's not an actual market inefficiency, if there's not an actual reason that it should go up to that particular point, then it's not worth the trade. So from our perspective, that they want to stop us out doesn't really matter. What matters instead is that we're in line with the market, that we're not taking a trade going short when there's a reason that it should be moving up, or going into a spot where there's just no reason for it to be trading, that we're actually trading ourselves off of a real market inefficiency that has a real reason that the market should go back to that spot. And when I say like a real reason for the market to go back to that spot, that would be something like, okay, for the treasury futures in particular, those are dominated by the cash market, right? In particular, the cash market for the delivery that is cheapest to deliver, or rather for the issue QSIP. There's a QSIP, certain type of bond that is the cheapest to deliver, and that's the way that the future is going to behave, right? And that's the thing that's really going to be the most dominant factor of price. So if something is moving the value of that underlying QSIP, right, then we have a real reason to trade. We can't quant that. Well, but this thing, I don't think that they have any way of knowing how many stops are out there. I could calculate out. I could sit down and I could say that there's, probably 2,000 shorts out there to stop out if we continue going up. Am I reading that right? Oh, 691, 22,000. 22,000. So worst case scenario, there's 22,000. That means there's probably less than 22,000 contracts short right now to stop out. Yeah. That kind of makes it even more interesting. Okay. I don't want that anymore. We're doing this stuff again, huh? Etherator. A market without limit orders works purely from product pricing changes, like you originally pointed out. With the ability to place limits, there is inherent information asymmetry due to paying for the book. Ding, exactly, Etherator. Informed traders have an advantage in that they have information that will suggest where it is going to go to, but since they're going to try and trade it with a market order, they have a disadvantage of having to pay up for the book. So in order for them to make money, it has to be going further than what their impact on the market is when they push the book. Ergo, there's not an infinite number of contracts. I can't sit down and say it's going to go to 30. Ergo, I can trade this with 6,000 contracts. It's actually a lot less than that because of their impact. And on the split side, the person that uses the limit order, he gets the advantage of being able to get the spread, but he is at a disadvantage when he's trading against somebody that's informed. Now, a pure market maker has an obligation. I don't know if it's really the case on these instruments anymore, but back in the day when it was like you were paid, they would pay Goldman or whoever it was to do market making for a particular instrument, and then they were required to make prices on both sides no matter what, right? But for you, the retail trader, you don't have to do that. You can choose which side you're going to market make on, right? You can choose, I'm going to go long and I'm only going to make a market, put limit orders on the sell or whatever the deal is, right? So that's an advantage for you, but it's only an advantage if you actually know what direction it's going. That's exactly how I would look at it, though. 22K at what? 12? So according to my metrics in the treasury, there are at most 22,691 orders short, with an average position at 131.26. $131.26 down here. That's from the beginning of the session. But that's just kind of like an average estimate, right? Because the inefficiency with my model is because I cannot determine if a stop order is a new position or a position taking a loss. There's no way for me to know how many contracts have already been taken off from losses, essentially. How many of those shorts have already puked, I can't see. Which is a pretty big inefficiency. If I had market buy order data, though, Sebastian, hey, thank you very much for the donation. How do you find out how fast, let's say, a block trade worth 400K would take to execute in the stock market? Okay, so that's a good question, Sebastian. So, first of all, we definitely have models that we can use to estimate what our market impact will be. So we can say, this is the number of contracts we're going to trade. This is how far it's going to move the market. But the issue with that is that they set the time frame. So the way that they go in and they say, okay, I need to buy 400,000 and we need to buy those 400,000 before Friday because we want to have it for the non-farms report or something like that, right? So they choose the time frame, and so it's a little difficult to know. But let's say, for instance, that a big news event happened and this guy now needs to trade 400,000 as fast as possible. Okay. Well, if it's if it's like a liquidation, then they just hit the market and they don't care about their market, their impact, and they just move it, right? And then that's when like truly crazy stuff happens. But if it's just like a normal operation, what they're going to do is they're going to move to the limit of their market impact, and then they're going to wait about 40 minutes. Is about on average how long it takes for the order book to like recover. So you could if you knew that it was going to be 400,000, you could game it out like that, and you could say, okay, here was a move up, and now I'm getting a bear flag. It should bear flag for 40 minutes, and then I'll continue to see it move up. That's about what I've seen, at least. It's around 40 minutes, but they're going to randomize it so that you can't tell that that's what's going on, right? Oh, by the way, I'm not picking up the, there we go. Wasn't picking up the audio. Bitcoin ETFs are available in Europe and Canada, but U.S. regulators are concerned and have yet to. Oh, really? I did not know that they had them in Europe and Canada. I'm surprised. AMC skyrockets after announcing new perks for extraordinary Reddit traders and retail investors. makes more sense that if you have market impact from your size to buy up and down, so book be damned. No, because so that's why you got to remember the sign change law, right, Etherator? So if you move the market up and then you immediately try and move the market down, you try and take profits, you're going to move the market down more than when you moved it up. That makes sense? You're going to move the market. You want to use your impact to make a trade. I'm going to move the market up 4 ticks. Okay. But then when I take my profits, it's going to move the market 5 or 6 ticks. Because you have to exit. That's the issue. I thought it was equal. That's the funny thing. But when you think about it, you understand why, right? Because as you trade, you kind of leave this wake behind you. Like you just watch it. Next time you see a good trend, that flips back down, just watch what happens in the book. You'll see, like right now, we're getting a pretty good trend, right? They're squeezing pretty hard. There's 4,000 contracts there. There's 3,800 contracts there, 41 there. Okay. Like the book is getting pretty thick on the bid side, right? Well, what if we went up to 132? Let's just say we went up to 132 and it did that all the way up. And then all of a sudden that was like done and there was like an unwind of it, right? And what are you going to see? It's going to trade down to 31.5 and it's going to trade down and it's only going to take 1,500 contracts to go through. So you're like, oh my gosh, they were pushing like 3,000 contracts, 4,000 contracts to go through. It was really hard for them to push up, but they were able to do it. And then on the other side, 1,500 contracts, 1,500 contracts, 15, and it just drops down on you so quick. And you're like, what? How does it do that? That's why. Because the latent liquidity, is basically harmed by the move up. And so even though they might show 4,000 there, the amount of latent liquidity, what actually ends up trading to push it down, is a lot less. Ergo, if this guy completely unwound his trade, he would move it down further than when he moved it up. This is, and I don't just make this stuff up. This is what the market microstructure models that scholars have developed over the past 30 years have found. And the Wall Street banks spend a great deal of time measuring all this stuff. That's why these hedge funds are willing to pay somebody like Goldman Sachs a pretty sizable amount of money just to execute for them, because the market impact is important. Like, think about it. If you trading it, don't think about it like I want to just move it to move it. Now think of it from, I have inside information. I've done some sort of analysis that tells me that it's going to go up to here. Okay. The more that I move the market as I try and take my trade, the less I make. So it's in my interest as an informed trader, hedge fund, to reduce my market impact as much as possible, which means spacing out when I take them and things like that. Which as we have found out, is actually a pretty involved science in and of itself that retail traders don't know a whole lot about, but I think probably should, because if there's anywhere in the market where they could maybe do trading, it would be doing that. Win still thinks that my superpower is pattern recognition. There you go. He also does his homework and researches, absorbs info to find patterns. I don't know. Like, the thing is I will see patterns, but I try to ignore them. Maybe Goldman Sachs isn't migrating to Florida after all, says the New York Post. Oh. Yes, Goldman Sachs tested the waters in sunny Florida while the virus raged last year, but now it's time to come home. As the second wave of coronavirus slammed New York City in December, Goldman was reportedly focusing on expanding its asset management business, a key growth engine for Wall Street behemoth, by relocating many of its workers to the Sunshine State. But insiders say Goldman Sachs Asset Management pulled employees on the cost-saving idea, with managers informally sounding out the rank and file, and the company even sending out a email survey, and the bank was met with a notable scarcity of snowbirds. So I asked one of my colleagues about, like, why are people leaving, and he said that it probably, a lot of it had to do with their strategy around value add locations. In other words, places like Florida or Salt Lake City, where they can have remote offices and pay people less. And so I wonder if that fits in line with that. Yeah. Anyways. There you go. 6 says, from now on, I'm just going to put myself in the shoes of hedge funds / informed traders and approach the market as if I'm an informed trader. I've just been thinking about markets from my perspective. Well, there you go. Yeah. Well, I think that the informed approach is a good one. There's it's fraught with issues too, right? But here's the thing: is you really the models they always take it through 3 ways: market maker, informed trader, noise. And we're all just noise is what they consider us, right? So could you make money being the market maker? Yes. And understand that market making techniques on average should make the spread. Okay. So, yeah, I don't know how to explain it more than that. You can go through the model and you can say, it's moved up this much. This is how much you should have made off of the spread. But essentially, on average, what you will make is just the spread between the prices, which here in the 10-year treasury is 1 tick. Okay. The problem is, can we as retail traders be competitive in that part of the game? That's the real question. That's the question that I'm trying to answer here is like, can I use superior pricing in lieu of not being able to get a good spot in the queue? It appears to me that in certain kind of markets you can, but it's very difficult. And the slower things are, the harder it gets for that. Yeah. So if the queue is really that big of an issue, then what's your alternative? Be an informed trader. You've been watching. Has it really been that long stick? Yeah, the numbers on the book is not always true. Well, yeah, latent liquidity. This is why I use the term latent liquidity, because the latent if you can model the latent liquidity, that's where a lot of these behaviors start to make sense. I don't know if I explained that very well. Let me finish my other thought first. So Yeah, there's a lot of reasons to want to be the informed trader, but the issue with being the informed trader is that you actually have to have information. Like, you have to know something that isn't being properly factored in by the market, essentially, right? That's the issue with being the informed trader. Or maybe you think you're informed and you really aren't. That happens all the time too. Essentially, if you want to trade as the informed trader, you have to be much more careful about when you take a trade, and your trades are going to be far less frequent. And that is kind of an issue of, you want to pull money out every day, but there might not be an informed trade every day. So I feel like you kind of want to supplement it, but finding something to supplement it is hard, right? Okay, so what was I going to say? The orders that are sitting out there on the DOM right now, that's resting liquidity. But what actually ends up trading there is the latent liquidity. That's why something like Jigsaw, where you can see the number of contracts that actually traded and how many it took to push it up or down a tick, matters quite a bit, is the latent liquidity. And a lot of these behaviors, such as the sign change law and most importantly, the square root law of market impact, they were not able to explain why those phenomenons occurred until they were able to develop models that effectively modeled the latent liquidity. So once you model the latent liquidity, then all of a sudden, why the square root law of market impact makes sense, because the book literally can only handle so far of a move. And then people have to take profits and stuff. It's essentially the market makers, they can't do it. You call that delta? Yeah. Well, the delta at each price would be equal to the latent liquidity, sure. Oh, jeez. I missed that comment from Steven. Yeah, well, when you say, I call that delta volume, what you're looking at is the number of market orders based on the bid ask, right? But that metric is essentially equivalent based, assuming which one you're using, of course. Either Ader says, so I've been looking into it just now and I'm wondering what you use as your calibration factor for ES. Oh, are you asking like what I actually use in the model for Kyle's Lambda? I don't have a calibration factor per se. So like that's one of the problems that I have is like, so if we're talking about calculating market impact, okay. If I was a big institution, I went and I traded 10,000 contracts, I could go and I could say, okay, I traded 10,000 contracts. This is how far it moved. Ergo, this is the Kyle's Lambda, based off of that. And you do that enough times and you get a pretty good estimate of what the lambda is for each instrument. And that's what these big institutions, they like track this stuff religiously, right? I don't have the access to that kind of information. So what I could potentially try and do is I say, well, this many contracts traded this day and this is how much it moved. And this many contracts traded this day and this is how much it moved. And so I can try and estimate it based off of that. But the calculations that I've done kind of suggest that that's a little bit of a flaky way of doing it. It introduces a lot of error, essentially, if you can't see the actual meta orders. So instead, what I do is I'm just keeping an eye out on, like, okay, I know how far of a move the S&P 500 tends to make before they have to, like, back up. You know, like if the S&P 500 goes 24 ticks, there's like a big gap between that. There's a lot of moves that stop there at 24 ticks. Wow, look at the way they took me out with 5K. So what I kind of look for is, okay, what is a reason that they would move more than that? If I know that there's a reason that they would move more than that, then I have a reason to try and take a trade. I'm scared of knowing exactly how much every little thing I do now at 18 will cost me an opportunity cost. That's pretty tech. I mean, it's really not though, right? It's a pretty generalized estimate. And that's kind of, you know, that's one of those things where it's like I wouldn't make a video explaining that sort of stuff. I only feel confident in explaining it to you guys because I know that almost anybody else watching the stream that hasn't been around won't really understand what I'm saying. But it's really quite unsophisticated, right? Like when you start thinking about it, all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, but if you had ways of actually calculating this sort of the stuff, think about how much of an advantage you have. Well, I was definitely right about the treasuries moving up here. The way they took me out was way stronger than I thought it would be. Yeah, but Taleb does exactly that. Warren Buff said no one wants to get rich slow. We get old fast. Some do the most basic stuff. Someone like Warren. Nobody talks about except a small few. Well, you know what? I saw this TikTok the other day, Stickball. And he was saying, what if I went back in time and I gave your parents $1 million and all of the education necessary for them to utilize that $1 million effectively and, you know, give you the best chance at everything, right? What would I be doing? You wouldn't be you anymore, right? You would have a completely different life. In effect, what I would be doing is I would be murdering the current you and replacing him with somebody else. Right? You are a factor of all of the experiences that you've had. And in order for you to be the person that you are today, I mean, you're not only just a factor of all of your experiences, but those play into it. And in order for you to be what you are today, you had to go through those experiences, right? So you can't go through life worrying about the missed opportunity that you have. The best that you can do is say, this is what I want, and then go out and try to accomplish those goals the best that you can. And sometimes you won't meet them, you know? So yeah, if I could go back again, I would probably do it different. I probably would not go into computer science. I would have gone into like financial engineering or something like that. And then maybe I would be trading for a bank or something. But then I wouldn't be here for you guys right now when I'm talking with you and have you guys all as friends, right? But maybe that's for you, right? Maybe you should go to school and go to the School of Finance and go and work for a Wall Street bank. You know what I mean? And maybe you do that and it's hard. My understanding, it's quite competitive. You have to go to the right schools, and then they take top applicants and things like that. But hey, if you didn't try, even though that's what you wanted to do, then you definitely regret that. So just go and do what you want to do. Yeah, but could you have made a different... I definitely could have made a different decision. I mean, I never would have. I understand. Computers was always my thing, was always what I wanted to do. That I got that interested in the markets is really a weird thing. and it was in the end a good thing that I got into computer science, because it's a good industry to be in, to make money. I should probably be thinking more about what I want to do in terms of my future in the computer science industry. Right now, I've been learning a lot about site reliability engineering, and I've just been working at being the best of that, because that's just basically where they ended up putting me. Where I go from there, I don't know. What I really want is I want employees. I don't think so much, because the thing is all of my goals end up being related to the stream. What do I really want? I want the stream to be successful enough that I can hire employees so that we can get more stuff for you guys. You grabbed 2 master degrees before you found the markets trade router? Really? That's interesting. I'm just seeing some stuff on Twitter about Biden. I'm wondering, it's I didn't see that tweet. We're witnessing an all-out assault on our democracy, and we need to act swiftly to protect the sacred right to vote. We need for the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Oh, gosh. No. What the Democrats post as voting rights is not voting rights. Sorry. You have an IO psychology degree, so thought about maybe steering myself into the next Brent Steenbarger. Oh, really? Concede that the S3 Partners account is all up, is super active on Twitter again because of all of the shorts. Thinking deeply about free will fucked my mind. I'm trying to fix it. Yeah. Well, there is something there though, right? Like I said, if I tell you to think of something random, you can think of something random. Where did that random thing come from? There's not some registered in your brain that says this is the thing I'm going to think about when I think about something random. It just spontaneously originates in your brain, and they have no clue how that happens. S3 was complicit in the last time. Well, the thing is that in the end, their metrics were right. I was very skeptical about their metrics. I was like, how do you know that this is actually effective? Like, do you have models to show us or how effective it actually is at modeling the short interest before it comes out. And I think in the end, at least in that particular instance, they were correct. Fine. So it's curious to me that these companies still have so much short interest in them, though. Like, I don't understand. These hedge funds didn't learn their lesson the first time around, Because, yeah, AMC doing really well, and now all of the other ones are coming up. So now they're talking about Bed Bath & Beyond, I think. Oh, no, wait, what is BB? BB is not Bed Bath & Beyond. That's, oh, BlackBerry. It's BlackBerry. So BlackBerry's high was 25 way back during the short squeeze. See where they go from here. The first spike they were right. The second, well, no, so the first spike they were, the first spike they were right. I was there something into the second spike that, because when I've been looking at it, it's been like there's no reason for them to be moving like they are. They're just, these guys still believe that there's something there and they're turning it into a battleground. That's probably to some degree what's happening in AMC too, but I think the reason that AMC has been moving is because there was news, right? Like they did an offering and now they're doing this stuff for the invest. It's so weird. Like the funny thing about AMC is that the company itself believes that their current valuation is unjustified. Like how do you justify in your mind buying a stock when the company itself says that we're not worth investment at this price, Yeah, I guess you can only be doing it on the expectation of a short-term move. Thanks for pointing that out, Uzi. It does appear in the treasuries here that they've kind of calmed down. That they took that big old order. Where was mine at? 29. Oh, yeah. So they took mine out and then they went a good 3 beyond that. And then they've kind of petered out. The memes are strong with AMC. Right. I mean, if I made my stream all about AMC, I'm sure we'd get tons of people in, right? We live in a quantum world, not a binary one, so free will is not obvious whether it exists or not, because both must be true. The world exists due to imagination, and the world we have imagined as being controls us. Yeah. Well, from a scientific perspective, they are starting to find some evidence that your brain must interact with quantum physics in some way that we don't understand. And that has been posited as a theory behind when you come up with a random thought, where that comes from. But it's probably super complicated. Maybe we never know. I I don't know. To me, the idea that I don't have free will is kind of silly. Like, I have will. That's all I can tell you. Imagine every black hole is the same black hole. I wonder if you're getting into, something that's kind of interesting is that, like, when you look at the universe expanding, like the universe continues to expand, and then there's light that leaves from an area, right? There is some light now that will never reach us. Essentially, there is like an observable range of the universe. And based on the speed of light, beyond that point, you can't see anything. So there could be stars and things beyond that point, but we wouldn't be able to see them. But then there's also this other thing that we tend to think of the Big Bang as like it was like this tiny little point that expanded and all of that sort of a thing. But my understanding from Stephen Hawking and kind of more recent research suggests that like matter like spontaneously generates out of the vacuum, right? Like, because of the quantum field, there are types of particles that will spontaneously be created, and that's what creates the expansion of the universe. So it's not like the Big Bang was a point. The Big Bang kind of happened like everywhere all at once. And then after that, the matter kind of, it chunks, and then that's how you end up with the kind of the structures that we have with superclusters and galaxies and things like that. And they've done models where they said, okay, if we put this matter randomly throughout a vacuum, how would it do? And it congregated in exactly that same kind of a pattern. And so that's why they're pretty confident that that's the case, right? You listen to Sam. I don't know who that is. Well, I hear, Ace, that sounds to me like you have a belief that's not based on empirical evidence. That free will doesn't exist is an opinion that we do not have a thorough enough understanding of the science to really make conclusive. Because again, if I tell you to think of something random and then you think of something random, was that predetermined? The thing that you were going to think about was pre-programmed in your brain? If it was, where did it come from? If it wasn't, where did it come from? We don't know where it comes from. And so how can you say, in the case of something that is truly random, you are truly coming up with a random thought, how do we... but then why are you say we don't have a thorough understanding, then let's agree one shouldn't hold a belief? Well, that's not what I'm saying, but it doesn't sound to me, you were promoting it as your belief though. You were saying we think we have a choice. It feels like we have a choice. And you're saying that it's not true, that we don't actually have a choice. So you were taking a position on the issue. Don't try and worm your way out of this. You took a position on the issue. You stated an opinion that we don't have a thorough enough understanding to support. So... yes, we probably don't have free will. It feels like a choice. How do you don't know that? We don't know that. So here's an instance where I'm saying we don't actually know that. Is it okay for you to have an opinion on whether it's true or not? You can come in and you can say, yeah, we don't understand it, but I think that it probably is true. And that's okay to do that. Why is it okay to do that? That's what we do as humans. Like, it is necessary for our day-to-day functioning. That skill. We have to have that skill. Correct. And so we should withhold belief, but you didn't withhold belief. You have an opinion. Sure, you think it is true because you want to believe, yeah. But you have an opinion too. You don't think it is true. Or like you're admitting that we don't really know, but you still have an opinion. Ergo, you wouldn't have shared it. When the correct position is to withhold belief and investigate, that you yourself don't do that. You frequently make assertions or share things with people based on an opinion that you don't 100% know. Based on listening to the experts, it seems that the deep thinkers on this say we don't have free will. Well, I don't know who you're talking about. That's certainly not the impression that I've got on, although it's not a subject that I've investigated that deeply. I'm sure that there's probably a wide array of disagreement. Holding an opinion because you want to believe is a sucker's bet. It's not a sucker's bet. It's a necessary part of human life, right? You understand that if you had to have empirical evidence for every decision that you made, you would constantly be paralyzed with inaction. Humans have to have the ability to act without a perfect knowledge on things. And so we have developed heuristics, and our brain has shortcuts to make decisions when it doesn't have that information available. You have to do that to go through daily life. It's not avoidable. The correct position on a claim is to not hold a belief without evidence, but you have a belief. Your belief is that it's probably not. Yeah, we're not talking about a perfect knowledge. Exactly. Here, it's a situation where because you don't have a perfect knowledge of it, you've formed an opinion leaning a certain way on an issue, even though you don't really know for sure. And that contradicts your philosophy of, holding off on things. But the reason that you do it is because it's a necessary part of human behavior. And the reason that I pointed out is because this process that happens is like automatic. Yeah, there you go. Yes, our intuition is really good for life on the savannah, not for neurology, cosmology, and earth science. There you go. That's exactly it. The reason it's important to understand this fact is to understand why your brain works that way, so that you can understand when that mechanism is activating in your brain. Because what happens is it's so automatic. You think that it's based on logic. You think that it's based on evidence. But the reality is that this process happens in our brain so naturally and automatic that we don't even think about it, and we don't even realize where it's coming from. And normally that's fine because, yeah, like you said, on the savannah, it's useful. Okay. But if you're day trading and you've formulated an opinion based off of that, I'm not going to say that you can't strictly trade it, but, you should realize that you believe the thing for, perhaps for irrational reasons, But you can make a trade like that. Like, I can come in here and I can say, I think that the jobs number is going to be less than expected. I don't. I actually think that the jobs number is probably going to be good on Friday. I have a couple of data points to support that. But at the moment, probably the reason that I believe that is just whatever it is that causes that. If it's free will or you're pre-programmed to go that way or whatever. But I understand that is just kind of like a disposition that I've arrived at, perhaps randomly. By Friday, I'll have read a lot more research and I'll have a good idea based on the data that tends to predict the jobs number, which way I think it's going to lean. And I use that to base my pattern off of, right? But you have to understand when that's happening, because if you don't, then what's going to happen is you're constantly going to end up making decisions that are wrong based on that mechanism and not even realize it. Right? Taking hip jobs with belief with respect to anything other than life on this event is a great way to be wrong. Yeah, but it's so that this is the thing. This is the other point about this that I don't think you understand. Okay, is there is a risk reward in that equation, right? You risk being wrong, yes, but the reward is potentially that you find out something that is true that we didn't know before, right? It's curiosity, right? If you automatically assume the null hypothesis on everything and you just assume that experts are right in things, you're never going to advance human knowledge. It's that skepticism that comes in and says, I don't know why, but what they're saying doesn't necessarily make sense to me. I have an alternative thesis. I'm going to go out and test that thesis, right? And why are you going to go out and seek to test that thesis? Who knows why you don't think that it's right? Maybe that is free will, right? But there, in that situation, the risk of being wrong is not that bad, Ace. You can be wrong a lot. The best people are wrong a lot. Like, the most successful people are wrong a lot. But what do? They make their decision. They follow through with it with all of their vigor, even if they know that they could potentially be wrong. And if they're wrong, then they're just wrong and it doesn't work out. And if they're right, then there can be like huge rewards and they make tons of money off of it, right? Wanting to be correct is a good way to go through life. Then you're just going to miss out on opportunities. Right? And here again, everybody makes these kinds of decisions, right? It is not logical to think that you as a retail trader can make money. It is not logical to think that you as a retail trader will be successful in trading. Every statistic, every piece of empirical evidence that we have on this matter says that you are going to lose everything that you put into it if you trade for a long enough of a time period, right? We're in a pretty bullish market, so a lot of people are going to be delusional about this, okay? It is completely illogical, and yet you are all trading. You are acting on a belief that you can be successful with day trading that has absolutely no basis in fact or reality or probability. Please tell me the situations. I didn't say that it was desirable to be wrong. I said that the risk of being wrong is not so bad. So let's go back to the alien thing, okay? So I think the alien thing is interesting. I don't believe that they're going to come out and say that they're aliens, just to be very clear. So I went and I did a bunch of research about this yesterday, again, and it just kind of confirmed my taking that there is something going on, and there are a significant number of instances where the U.S. government can't explain what they're seeing, and they're concerned that it's a national security issue. That does not mean that they believe it is aliens. And in fact, it has gone to a point where if it was aliens, they probably would have done something by now, right? So I don't think that on June, apparently the report is supposed to be delivered to Congress on like June 25th, okay? I do not believe that in that report they're going to tell Congress, actually, there are aliens and we know it. I don't think that that's what's going to happen, just to be clear, right? But I do think it's interesting. And I do think that there's going to be interesting things in that report. I went through, there's a number of things that the people that leaked the previous videos said are out there that sound super interesting. One of them was that they said that they had a fairly high resolution photo of a pyramid coming out of the water. Okay. So I'm excited to see what comes out in that June 25th report. Now, if that June 25th report comes out and there's nothing interesting in it at all, then I'm wrong that there wasn't anything interesting in it. Okay. Does it matter? Am I really harmed by it? How much harm has been done, right? You're when you're talking about risk, there's different metrics on a risk, right? There's the probability that you're going to be wrong. Then there are best and worst case scenarios about the amount of damage that you take from being wrong, right? So, if the belief that you are taking on here has a probability of killing you, or particularly if it has a high probability of killing you if you are wrong, then obviously that's not a risk that's worth taking, right? But here is what I'm saying is that the vast majority of the decisions that we make on beliefs and things like that, they don't matter, man. They really don't. They really don't. Honestly, like whether or not you believe in God, it's like the harm that's done to you is as long as you're not getting, as long as your religion doesn't have things that are like really harmful, like Islam has. Okay. It's like minuscule. The risk involved in a lot of these things that we talk about. And if it's like a reasonable risk when it comes down to religion, then how many other decisions is it that you make on those sorts of things that really matter? It's not like it doesn't matter. I'm just saying that it's like the risk that something happens. So now we agree there's no evidence that aliens have visited us. Well, yeah. So that's where I'm saying that I don't think that you are presenting it correctly, Ace. There is a significant body of evidence of unidentified aerial phenomenon that we cannot explain. And one of the best explanations that we have for it right now is that it could potentially be aliens. But you are correct in saying that as of yet, we have not found a piece of evidence that conclusively proves that it is aliens.
Block cell.
Can I bet against alien? It's pretty likely that alien life will not be revealed in that report. So the UFO okay, so there's another story about this that kind of got jumbled in with everything else that you should understand, that if you understand this, that well, these two things. I shouldn't have said, I didn't say it was the best explanation, but it's one of the best explanations. Yes. It's basically what the officials are saying is that like we're concerned, and like the reason that this is a big story is because they've gotten to the point like they did. Well, oh my gosh, there's so much. Let me just tell you this story, and then I'll get back to the thing that I was about to go into before you said that. Okay, the way this started was there was these people in the government that I would say that they were UFO enthusiasts. Okay, there are a lot of people apparently in the government that watch this, this alien stuff on television, and they just absolutely love it. Okay, so they came in and they said, well, we should investigate this stuff. So this guy, he went in and he investigated it for several years. I think it was from 2007 till 2012 or so. So for like 4 or 5 years that he investigated this stuff, and he was very frustrated because the government was not open. Like he was trying to get information and trying to see what was going on with these things, and they would roadblock him essentially. So in 2017, late 2017, essentially this guy left the government. And then him and a former director of national intelligence, I believe it was, like a really high up guy, basically leaked these videos, right? So we know that it was him and where the videos came from and everything like that, okay? They leaked these videos. And when those videos came out, there was so much public interest about it. And everybody started to go, oh, okay, like there's something going on here. Like, there has been people, like particularly the Nimitz video. That's the one that I think everybody focuses on. The one that you're probably seeing that's like the grainy video and, of an airplane flying over the ocean, right? That's the one where these guys say this was something happening on the training range, and they were seeing it every day. The flight instructor testified that they were seeing this every day. And the reason that they only started seeing it now was because they had like a new infrared radar. Okay. I digress. Okay. So when that came out, everybody in the government started to say, oh, you know what? Like there is a problem here, because what happens is anytime that something weird like this happens, we say, well, we don't believe in aliens. We don't want to, we don't want to do anything crazy or look stupid, so we're just going to ignore that it happened. And what they discovered with this Nimitz incident is that there is enough oddity around it, and apparently we don't understand all of the oddity around it because there are like other metrics, that detection systems that they can't reveal to us because it's confidential information. But there's other data that they have that they find particularly troubling. Okay, we put it at that. So when that happened, the government kind of changed its position on it, and that guy left, and they created a new program with a new guy that has a very, very high ranking in the structure. He's not in the military, but he's like the equivalent of a 2-star general, but he's a civilian. Okay. And they did a more detailed report. And when they started doing this more detailed report, what we understand from the people that are writing the report was that this investigation was much more productive than what the first guy did. That they were able to pull together a wide body of evidence about things, and that they believe that there's reason to be concerned about this thing, that they don't understand what it is, and we shouldn't jump to the conclusion as aliens, but that they have a good reason to believe that it could pose a security threat to the United States. So a lot of people have talked about it, that, it could be Chinese or Russian aircraft, and with the capabilities that these things appear to have, that's concerning, right? So, well, I don't see the aliens explanation as lazy. I do see it as increasingly unlikely. Well, so I'm going to say that amongst the possibilities for what it is, I don't have any way of quantifying what the probability of any one of those individual things are. of them actually being true. Okay. The reason why I say that it is unlikely to be revealed in that report, and this goes back to this other story that's in here that kind of got mixed up with it. Okay. There's this guy in Israel. He was a general. Top general in the Israeli army, and he started giving these interviews where he said that, oh yeah, the US government and the Israeli government have this pact with the aliens, and there is a base on Mars, and there are US astronauts on Mars working with these aliens regularly and all of this stuff, right? Okay, so people picked up on that story after, with all of this other stuff going on, with this investigation going on, and then this general came out and said that. And they were like, what? Okay, so there's a researcher and there's like a company that the creator of the company is pals with Harry Reid. And they have been contracted by the government to look into some of this stuff. And they also have a close relationship with this reporter that has kind of been the main reporter that's been reporting all this stuff, right? And so that reporter started to look into the Israeli general stuff. And so she actually interviewed him, and she found out that he didn't have any firsthand knowledge of this stuff. He was basically just repeating stuff that he had read in books. He had read conspiracy theory books, and that's where he got that stuff from. So this whole thing that like a Israeli general confirmed that there are aliens, that's been debunked. He didn't know what he was talking about, right? He's just an old guy saying stupid stuff, essentially. Okay. On top of that, there's all of this whole body of alien research out there by people that are just, regular people that are interested in it, that they all have claims of that the government knows about aliens and things like this. And so there is this belief among those people that now that the government is doing like a thorough investigation of it, that they will have to admit to the investigators that they really do know that there are aliens. And so that's where this kind of assumption that the report is going to come out and it's going to verify that there are aliens comes from. But that has never been the case, and I've never been trying to say that that's the case. Like the whole thing here is that the government, in fact, here, let me pull you up this quote here. I think I had it down here at the bottom. Okay. Christopher Mellon was interviewed about this, and he was Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence for both Clinton and George Bush. Okay. And they interviewed him, and this is what he said about it. So it's not us. That's one thing we know. The interviewer, we know that, Chris Mellon, I can say that with a very high degree of confidence, in part because of the positions I held in the department, and I know the process. Okay. So that's the thing that is kind of weird. That's where I'm saying, like, if it is aliens, they don't know it, right? Like, the whole thing here is that the government has like investigated these incidents before, and they cannot explain them. So now what they're trying to do is take all of the information that they have from different agencies and pull it together based on, remember yesterday, well, so the whole point about Harry Reid, Ace, was that you were saying, well, who is it that's saying these things? And that there's nobody there. And so I pointed, I mentioned Harry Reid, but I can mention a bunch of other people now too, because like I wrote it all down. I did the research and wrote it all down so that I could make you look stupid. Okay. So Harry Reid, Louis Elizondo, who was the first investigator in the government that was going through all this stuff and leaked the stuff. Okay, John Ratcliffe, who was the former director of national intelligence, Christopher Mellon, who was this deputy assistant secretary of defense for intelligence that we were just talking about. Then there's a bunch of pilots that have come forward talking about this stuff. Lieutenant Ryan Graves, Lieutenant Alex Dietrichs, David Favre, Chad Underwood. These are all of the people that were involved in the Nimitz incident that have testified about it. And then further on top of that, there's a number of people that we know that we don't know the names of, but we know exist. So Elizondo's successor, who is heading up the current investigation, they won't tell us his name because they don't want him to be inundated by UFO conspiracy theorist peoples. There's also a former Pentagon official that has done interviews but has not been named, and may be one of the people that we've already mentioned. It could that former Pentagon official could be John Ratcliffe. And then there was also a report in France where it was basically a dozen people on a commission, and this comprised of generals, scientists, and space experts. Okay, this is where they kind of get down to it. So the French did an investigation in 1999 where they did a similar thing to what the U.S. government is doing now, essentially. And their conclusion was, we can't explain it, but we think there's a good chance that it's aliens. That's what they said. Okay. This was a dozen retired French general scientists and space experts that did a commission. So if it's aliens, the government doesn't know about it. You get what I mean? Do you understand what I mean by that? Where I'm saying, like, if it was aliens, it's not like part of the government knows that there's aliens and the other part of the government doesn't know that they're aliens, and this part has to tell them that they're actually there. Like, no, like they've already been through that and they don't know what it is. Okay. So if it is aliens, then it would be the case that there have been aliens visiting us, but they really don't want to be seen, and that they have been evading even the governments of the world, essentially, right? Okay, but to say that it is extremely unlikely to be aliens, I don't think that we can say that. I think that some of these incidents just straight up defy explanation, and one theory could be because they call them phenomena. That was another thing that I remember you getting big about, was like that it's not an object. Okay, so we call it a phenomena. The phenomenons that they've been tracking appear to like defy the laws of physics. Apparently. That's not shown in the videos, by the way. The videos that we've been shown, I don't think show this stuff. So if it's an actual object, I mean, maybe if it's energy, that could be explained somehow. But then I'd be wondering, like, how can it show up on all of these instruments? You know what I mean? Okay. So then we say it's an object. Okay, well, could it be a foreign government? It's possible. But then at that point, you've kind of got to wonder, like, okay, how does China or Russia have technology like that? Because the things that they're talking about are like truly spectacular. Okay, what they can do that just defies everything that we thought was possible. Okay, so when you go down that list, is aliens really that far-fetched of an explanation for it? I don't think so, but like I can't say with any degree of certainty what it actually is. That's why it's so interesting. That's why we're so interested to read the report. When you don't have an explanation, is it a good idea to make up an explanation, especially one that defies the law of physics? No, it doesn't. That's not what they're doing. They're going down the list of possibilities. Like that's the thing is you're acting, Ace, like oh, some Navy pilot, he made this report that he saw this thing and it moved really, really fast. And it was just a drone or it was some phenomenon. And once if people really look into it and they scrutinize it and they're skeptical, they'll realize that there's a really easy explanation for it. Okay. There are a lot of people online that have made videos about the videos that have been released that have gone through and done that. Okay. And they made a comment about that too. Where was that? Maybe I didn't copy that particular part. Oh, here we go. Lou, the investigator, talking about this. In some cases, there are simple explanations for what people are witnessing, but there are some that are not. We're not just simply jumping to a conclusion that's saying, oh, that's an unidentified aerial phenomenon out there. We're going through our due diligence. Is it some sort of new type of cruise missile technology that China has developed? Is it some sort of high altitude balloon that's conducting reconnaissance? Ultimately, when you have exhausted all of those what ifs and you're still left with the fact that this is in our airspace and it's real, that's when it becomes compelling and that's when it becomes problematic. That's what he said. Okay. So like, this is where I'm saying to you, Ace, I wouldn't make a conclusion that it's not aliens. This is where I've gone through, read all of this stuff. They don't know what it is. It's okay if somebody wants to believe that it's aliens or that it's not aliens. But if you're like trying to make a trade off of it, I would just say, put a little bit of a low risk trade on Lockheed Martin, man. That's what I would do. Because when you look at what it really is, there's no way to say what it is or what the probability of it being an alien or a Russian jet or what it is. And so given those probabilities, it could be anything, you know what I mean? How did they decide they had exhausted all possibilities? Ace, because they paid a whole group for 5 years, and then that guy kept working another 10 years after that, trying to figure out what it was, and they couldn't explain it. That's why. Because they had people in the government working on this full time. There's no way to say what it is. We don't know. You're right. We don't know. But that's not what you were saying. You were saying it's definitely not aliens. And I'm not sure about that. I'd argue that if a foreign adversary had advanced technology as being speculated, they would have used it by now. I don't know, man. No, I never plugged in an answer. I'm saying there are a number of possibilities, and aliens is one of them. And that given the evidence that we have, that it's not really as far-fetched of a possibility as everybody tries to make it out to be. Like from my perspective, is it a Chinese drone versus is it an aliens? Equal probability. 50 that it's the Chinese, 50 that it's aliens. How did you decide that aliens are a possibility? Because the people in the military are saying that it's a possibility. Because they're the French You're not listening to what I'm saying, man? Because the French went and did a study, and 12 of their top general scientists and aerial, space exploration people went and looked at this evidence, and they said that we think that maybe it's aliens. They went through the evidence and they said, like, based on what we know, like, our best guess is that it could be aliens. They can't prove it, but their best guess is that it's aliens. If the government is covering up a knowledge of aliens, they're doing a better job of it than they do at everything else. It seems very clear to me that if there are aliens, that the government doesn't know about them. At the very least, you can safely say that if it does turn out to be aliens, you won't see Ace admitting that he was wrong. Seems clear your bias is wrong, but your bias is showing too, Ace. Like this is the difference between us. The thing that I'm trying to explain and that you just refuse to believe, but it's so obviously true. I have a bias 100%. I base my entire YouTube on that I have opinions and that I am not afraid to share what my opinions are on certain things. Okay. Can I empirically prove that, what Israel is doing, that they have a right to protect their own safety and that what they're doing is their correct move? Like, how do you empirically prove? That's an opinion, but I am not in the least bit hold back from saying that yeah, you shouldn't be shooting missiles into civilian population. Like, that's an opinion, right? And I know that it's my opinion and I 100% own it. But you also have opinions, and you are still working under the delusion that none of them are opinions. And so if they are aliens, he will say, well, I said we don't know what they are. Well, you are now saying that we don't know what they are, but you have also said that you're pretty confident that it won't be aliens. And I can't confidently say what it's going to be. It's so weird. Like, that's I get why these guys are saying this, because the information that we do have really does defy explanation. Like, there's a lot of problems. Like if it was aliens, then it would totally make sense. Like, all of these things, they're seeing aliens, like, the explanation fits. Every other explanation that I try and stick in there, I've got problems with it, right? Like, let's just talk about the Chinese one for a second, okay? If the Chinese have that kind of tech, how did they get that? Because we're not just talking about, like, oh, they have a plane that's a little bit faster than ours, like, these are the kinds of technological differences in advancement. No, we're talking about we're talking about 2 or 3 technical advancements that are on the same level as, like, creating a nuclear bomb in terms of sophistication and advancement in technology, that we're seeing all at the same time. And how did China do that? Like, that doesn't seem very likely to me. You get what I mean? So I totally get why there are a lot of people, even in the government, and mind you, there are people in the government that are alien conspiracy theorist enthusiasts. So they're going to have their bias too. But I totally understand why there's a lot of people saying that maybe that's a possibility. What would be unnatural about a spacefaring civilization existing in an infinite universe? Well, okay, so back in the day, there was an incident. I forget what it was. I forget which one it was. Maybe it wasn't Roswell, but it was around that time, and it was before that. And the explanation that they gave was that it was swamp gas. You know what I'm talking about? Okay. Well, now, several decades later, the internal communications around that incident came out. And basically, hold on a second, the squawk is talking. Okay. Anyways, so the explanation that they gave was that it was swamp gas. Okay. But when you go and you look at the internal communications, it was basically like, we don't know what's going on and we can't explain it. And they were freaking out. And the reason that they were freaking out at the time wasn't because of aliens, although that's what people in the US were saying. But they were thinking, what if the Russians have this technology advantage on us? Like, that's what they were freaking out about. Okay. And they were concerned that if this got into the public consciousness that the Russians had a technological advantage on us, that would be extremely detrimental to American security. So the decision was made to suppress it because of that. Okay. So when the decision was made to suppress it, the explanation that they put out, that was given, was that it's physically impossible for aliens to visit us because the other planets are so far away and you couldn't travel there in the speed of light and all of this sort of a thing. Okay. That's the explanation that they gave. So that's where that comes from. Okay. Obviously, if aliens really do visit the Earth, they have some sort of warp travel technology, right? But here again, the couple of the things that they've seen these aerial phenomenon do, again, there's evidence that we don't have that they can't show us, but that they've talked about in relation to these incidents. These they are able to travel supersonic almost instantly, but produce no sonic boom. They can go underwater. And they are difficult to track, the instruments and stuff. It creates interference with instruments. So you can't, there was one instance where a guy said that he got very, very close to it and that he could feel the electromagnetic field is what he said. This was an Air Force pilot. So, those are three. That's why I'm saying those are three pieces of technology that if this is really the Chinese, how did they do that? Because those are three really big advancements in technology that, again, in terms of sophistication and advancing our understanding of physics, are on the same level as the development of the nuclear bomb. And how did China get that big of an advantage over us in such a short time and us not have even a clue? So that's where I think people are saying okay, it doesn't make sense. So then it's well, is it some sort of natural electromagnetic thing? Well, I think that probably is a pretty good explanation, except for that it's showing up on radar and stuff. So that kind of suggests that it's an actual object, right? So if we rule that one out because of that, and we rule out that it's another country, then what other explanations are you left with? And the other one would be, another explanation would be, people saw things and they were just wrong, right? That's always check out this guy, he debunks a lot. Well, so I can give you way more better names than that, dude. So if you want to see the people that are kind of the skeptics on here, you want to look up Michael Shermer, Mick West, David Clark, these guys. Mick West in particular has a YouTube channel where he goes through a lot of this stuff. I think Mick West did a good job of showing that the information in the video, because everybody got super excited about the videos themselves, But I don't think the videos themselves are that interesting. And apparently it's the other telemetry information that they collected at the time that starts to get them like, okay, that's weird. Right. Like one of the ones that I thought was really funny was like he was saying, oh, this is probably a commercial jet. And I'm like, okay, so you're telling me that the military doesn't know when a commercial jet is flying through their airspace? Like, come on. That doesn't make sense at all. But there are skepticals. And there's also Susan Go is the person from the Pentagon that has basically been the spokesperson on this and has kind of been tamping everybody down, saying like, we're not saying that we believe there's aliens out there. So are you saying you watch debunking videos and you're still excited? I am still excited to see what the report says. I don't think that the report is going to verify that there are aliens. Like I said, if there are aliens, it appears to me that the military doesn't know about them. That if that is the case, then the aliens have been trying to avoid detection by everybody. Should I stay in this? Like, I got my thing. Oh, it's so tough. That's such a tough one. Stick is like, I really think we should start talking. I think I said everything that there was to say about it, right? I have to say, so I'll give you a link. I have a couple of links. So here's the other thing that you might want to understand is like, there's like a timeline of events. I didn't realize that this started in 2017. Time flies, I guess, because in my mind, this was only like just before the pandemic. But no, apparently this has been going on since 2017, right? So I can give you a couple of links. Well, I don't necessarily need to give you the links to all these. The first story, the one that really started all of this, was came out in December of 2017. Okay, in the New York Times. Okay. And then the one that really started to get people going like, what's going on here, was the 60 Minutes expose that they did on this, where they interviewed all of these people that I've talked about, right? But I think that if you want the most thorough rundown of this story and the actual evidence, and again, here I'm saying I don't have evidence that proves that there are aliens. I have a lot of evidence that proves that there's something worth looking into, but we don't know what it is. Okay. And aliens is one of the possibility. Then here's a story. I'll post it here in chat. There's a story that is, and it'll take you like that'll take you a good 30, 40 minutes to read. It's a long article. Okay. And it goes through the whole history. It not just since 2017, but like everything from the government. And it's quite interesting. The real story here, again, because I don't know if the report is going to be able to explain them, to be honest with you. I think that it might not be able to explain it. May come out that there's still some incidents that we don't know what goes on. I'm guessing that's probably the case, but I also think that we're going to get some information. So, like I said, in particular, there was this guy that leaked the 3 videos, said that like wasn't even the best stuff. So there should be a lot of interesting stuff in the report. Okay. But again, I don't think there'll be aliens. Anyways, that story is like everything that's ever happened through the government. And they basically explain how they got to the point where the government said, you know what? Like they explained why the government kind of suppressed these kinds of reports in the past and why the government has since changed its mind and decided that, you know, when things like this happen, we really should investigate it. So aliens existed in our minds. They exist in our world. There's some, so you know what was funny? I'll tell you two more stories that they talk about in that thing. You're holding two beliefs in your head that there's interest. No, that's not what I said. There is interesting stuff in the report. Okay, so I'll tell you two things that I specifically believe will be in the report. One is where is it? One is a video of a cubed shaped object. How good of a video, if that's going to be like another blurry video or what, but there is a video of a cube shaped object that they said was really interesting. That's one thing that I believe will be in the report. And the other one is a video of a large equilateral triangle emerging from the ocean. That's another one that I'll be interested in. Okay. Now, when I hear equilateral triangle, I would immediately be a little bit. So one of the videos that came out more recently, like in April, there was a video that came out in April. Do you remember that? I think that one's debunked because it was like a triangle, but the triangle is created by the lens flare with the way that the night vision works. So that, so when I hear a large equilateral triangle emerging from the ocean, I'm a little skeptical about that one. But there will be a video there. But that one maybe is not as amazing as their description makes it to be, right? Because it could just be this triangle comes over the horizon, and then it's like, well, maybe it was just came over the horizon and didn't actually come out of the ocean, right? Okay. So those are two things that I believe will be in the report. But I do not believe that the report will confirm that the government knows there are aliens. Okay. How did you decide it was an object? So I believe that it is an object because the military telemetry data that they've been talking about are things that wouldn't pick up an energy phenomenon, right? This is like, it shows up on radar and stuff. It shows up on like new advanced radars. You have access to no, I don't have access to the military data, but Lou, how do I say his name? Elizondo, Luis Elizondo did have access to the military data, and that's what he said. And that will be another thing that probably we should when that report comes out, that we should look at. Yeah. Use aliens in your title. I don't want to put aliens in the title because I don't want that traffic. So it's all on Lou's shoulders? Well, no, it's not all on Lou's shoulders. So Christopher Mellon, the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, helped Luis Elizondo leak this information. It was also backed up by former Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe. That was also backed up that this information showed up on the telemetry data by 4 separate what were they? They were in the Navy, yeah. Lieutenant Alex Dietrich, David Fravor, Chad Underwood, and Ryan Graves have all confirmed this information, Ace. Okay. So here's the last thing that I'm going to tell you on this thing, all right? Let me show you my little PowerPoint. Oh, I didn't save it. Okay. Here's what we do. We say, no, I'm not combining many different stories, Ace. Everything, if you click on that one link and you read that one link, that will give you almost everything that I just told you. And more. And more. I think the most interesting thing that I saw in that one was there's this the researcher. This was the one last story I was going to tell you, and then I forgot what I was talking about. she's like, well, I only want to focus on like empirical evidence and stuff like that because all of these other people in the UFO scene are like crazy. So she said, I'm going to investigate like specific incidents with people that are like credible witnesses or like military people and things like that. And so she narrowed in on a story where an object came out of the sky of some sort, and it was loaded up onto a pickup truck by service members and taken away. And that was the story. And so she went in and tried to like request the government records for this, and they wouldn't let her have them. So she gave up on that one and moved on to this. And that's when it kind of got to this other stuff. Okay. But that's all in that link that I gave you. All of it is in that link that I give you from the New Yorker. Okay. So I'm not combining multiple stories. Okay. And all of those people that I gave you are all of the names involved in that one story that was released by the New York Times in 2017. Okay. So there's the first thing. So what was my point here? So you're saying, this is all off of one person? No. So you see my diagram here, Ace? You see this? I want you to focus on this one particular spot right here where it says gather empirical evidence. Okay? Does it say listen to what other people say about it and then immediately doubt their claims? No. Does it say I guess I don't have a better way of explaining that. Couldn't get the records must mean the telemetry data was linked to that. Okay. So, here's what I'm saying. Why is it that I have to gather all of this evidence for you? I've just gathered all of this evidence. All you have given me is Harry Reid was told no. No, I've given you Harry Reid, Luis Elizondo, John Ratcliffe, Christopher Mellon, Alex Dietrich, David Favor, Chad Underwood, 3 unnamed individuals that are currently in the Pentagon looking at this right now, and a dozen retired French general scientists and space experts. That's what I've given you, Ace. What you just said is objectively false. And when you say stuff like that, I think, man, you are a fucking idiot to continue saying that. Because I just gave you this list of names and it's like, oh my God, I could literally show an alien to you and you would like not believe it. But obviously that's not going to happen. But here's the point, dude. Why can't you look this shit up on your own? Why do I have to do the work for you? If you're going to have a discussion about something, you should understand it. Do you understand how boring and stupid of a conversation it is to be like, okay, well, here's a piece of empirical evidence that we have. And then you're like, well, I don't believe you. That's like the dumbest conversation ever. You know what would be a more interesting conversation? Okay, here's a piece of evidence that they have. And then you would go, oh, yes, I've read about that story as well. Here is my take on that piece of evidence that you just presented. Do you see how much more interesting that is? Right? Do you understand how much more effective that is to a process about determining whether or not something is true or determining what the objects that we're talking about actually are? But instead, what do we have? Seth explains something and then he says, well, I don't believe you. Get a grip, dude. This is those, what do they talk about it? What's the word? I'm giving you the harshness here. Not because I am a little frustrated with you, but I'm giving you the harshness here because I'm sitting here and I'm like, dude, like, if that's the way that you do everything, like, if you're going to talk about something, and especially if you're going to have a debate and express skepticism on an issue, you should know what you're talking about, man. You should have done some of your own research. And the fact that we had this argument yesterday, I went and I was able to collect a 8-page document full of quotes and information on this story that is all verified, reported information, and you didn't do a single fucking bit of research. Huh? That's the last thing I want to say about it. You say he enjoys the challenge of a debate, and his tactic would be to put you on the defensive and sit back and enjoy. Yeah, I win. I think you're 100% right. I think you're 100% right. It's a really ineffective and shitty debate tactic, right? No, I have not realized that it probably isn't aliens. My opinion is no different than what I told you yesterday. You're trying to represent what I said yesterday in an attempt to save face, but what I said today is 100% consistent with what I said yesterday. Is Tesla dumping here? I think E-midi's not really reacting. The treasuries are up a little bit. I think that aliens is among one of like 5 possibilities, and that it is actually surprisingly a good contender. No, Steven says just a bit. Okay. No, I think you're right, Win. I think he enjoys the challenge of the debate, and his tactic would be to put you on the defensive and sit back and enjoy. But what I'm just saying is, it's not a very effective way of debating because all it does is make you look like you don't have a clue what you're talking about. What I've heard today is that you agree with me that we don't have evidence that it is aliens. But I said that yesterday, Ace. I said that multiple times yesterday, that we do not have evidence proving that it is aliens. Only that we have evidence that we cannot explain what it is, and that aliens is one of the potential theories, and that it is actually a pretty strong theory compared to the alternatives. It's not the only theory, and I'm not even going to say that it's the most likely theory, because I'm certainly not sure what the most likely theory is. Probably in a situation like this, the most likely theory doesn't really matter, right? It's just like in the market. Like I could sit down and say, is it more likely to go up or down? Doesn't matter, because all that matters in the end is whether it actually does go up or down. Joe Rogan has been good friends with Alex for a long time, and if Alex is making this all up while acting crazy, I'll be surprised. But Alex does stick. I'm not going to say that Alex Jones makes things up. I mean, he gets the things that he says from somewhere, but it is an act. And he's admitted in court that it's an act. He sensationalizes things intentionally to get views. The products he sells are complete BS. I wouldn't be surprised. Listen to Russell Brand as a guru? What? My point wasn't to irritate you. My point was that one shouldn't believe a claim without evidence. Well, but that's where I'm saying that, like, it's more. I think I already went through that part earlier, though, right? I feel like I pretty effectively proved my point on that. There are instances where it is beneficial for you to believe something without evidence, and you kind of have to look at the risks and rewards of that, right? So don't think that you should believe. Can you believe that it's possible to make consistent money trading futures without evidence? I think that that's a reasonable thing to believe. And here in this instance, I mean, you're risking actual money. Yeah. But am I going to tell people they shouldn't do it? No, I'm not going to tell them that. Yeah. He asked the question. I already answered it. That's funny. Tucker Carlson is said in court, no one listening should think he is telling facts. He is entertainment also. So I vaguely remember a story about that. I think we should look that one up again because I don't think that's explicitly what he said. Because that one had to do, didn't it have to do with the one where they sued him because they ran some story about him that wasn't true and they were claiming that it was libel? Then why doesn't Joe Rogan say that it's all an act? Because I think Joe Rogan buys it. No offense to Joe, but I wouldn't call him a leading scientific thinker, you know? The whole thing about Joe Rogan is that he's just an average guy. That's why we have laws against it, like all these financial anti-guru scam laws, yet they don't do anything against them. Well, the problem with that stick is there is so much of it out there. You know, it's really, man, you know, you get me thinking about that. There is so much fraud in the futures trading space, in the trading space in general. It really turns into it really is like you come in and you get day traders, right? And they say that, you know, 70% of them are gone after a year. Okay. And I would say that there's a good percentage of them, 5 to 10%, that say, well, I can't trade. I'm going to continue try working, and in the meantime, I will try and make money through the ecosystem. Lots of people do that. I do that to some extent, right? But then there's another subgroup of those people, and it's probably like 5% or something like that decide that they're just going to make money by telling other people bullshit. So there are so many of these gurus out there that the government simply doesn't have the resources to go after them. Because there are people out there, I can tell you, have swindled people out of hundreds of thousands of dollars, and nobody does a thing about it. And these are people that are like abusive. Like we could make a pretty good Dateline NBC episode about these people. And it seems like it's impossible to get anybody to care. And I'm pretty confident that the reason that is because the government agencies in charge of policing this sort of stuff simply do not have the funding to investigate it all. So they can only go after the biggest ones. You mean like naval aviators smelling a book gel? Okay, so that's funny that you would say that, Ace, because this is another example of where you should really go and do your research and read the source that I've given you before you start talking out of your ass, because these naval aviators did not ask to be put in the spotlight. This was something that happened like several years ago, and they reported, and then they just kind of forgot about, and they were shoved into the limelight by these other researchers. And it wasn't until CBS did their 60 Minutes thing and they interviewed these people that they came out on the record and did it. And in fact, one of those guys in particular said that he really didn't want to be on television, but that he was doing it because he had looked at the evidence too, and he thought that it was a concern as well. And so he was doing it in order to, you know, encourage the government to take these incidents more seriously. And so I think that it's absolutely ridiculous to be claiming that they only said that what they said because they smell a book deal. Because one, they didn't bring it up; it was hoisted upon them, and two, there's like all of this other telemetry data. So here's my recommendation to you: don't say another thing about it until you've done more reading. Yep, it's time to close up. I gotta go, guys. Stay profitable, friends. I will close this one out at 60. Oh, there you go. As soon as I get out, there's the big spike. Stay profitable.